Indianapolis Motor Speedway, home to the greatest spectacle in racing. What makes this place so unique? Is it the drivers, the cars, the fans? Well, it's a combination. We have witnessed this month how special this place is. With the prospect of the first female pole sitter, to the accident that dissolved the chance of Buddy Rice's return to victory lane, and the return of a 500 winner. We have still yet to see what this sacred ground has to offer us. As Bump Day descends upon us, what surprises will we encounter this year? Who will be given the chance to become a 500 champion? Bump Day in Indianapolis is next. Welcome you live to the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for this, the fourth and final day of Indy Time Trials, also known as Bump Day. For those who have hopes of qualifying, the clock is ticking and the time is running out. Historically, this day has delivered so much emotion over the years. These final 2 hours are all that is left if you are to find the speed and secure position in this year's starting field. Take a look at our qualifying summary. Reigning series champion Tony Kanaan is our pole sitter. Sensational rookie Danica Patrick has made history as the highest qualifying female in Indy 500 history. And the comeback kid, Kenny Brett, who returned to the track yesterday after a life-threatening crash 19 months ago and immediately served notice that he is 100% healthy by turning the fastest four-lap average of the month, 227.598 miles per hour. And yes, there are 33 cars qualified. The field is full. How did it fill up? At 3:15 local time today, a second-generation driver, Arie Luyendyk Jr., took to the track. 4:15 Eastern time, 3:15 local, Luyendyk made his very first attempt to qualify. As you watch his run, let's hear from the former pole sitter and our analyst, Greg Ray.
Well, I say, well, you know, this is very, very exciting. You know, Arie Luyendyk Jr. was thrown into the deep end of the field here. He didn't have a lot of time to practice, and you know, yesterday when he rubbed the wall, I think he really thought about whether he's going to be able to suck it up and get it in the show. And today he went out there, and I think we're all relieved to see him run 2:15s and get in the show. He ran each lap faster than the one before. And I tell you, though, right now, I think a lot of cars maybe. We didn't think that there'd be any bumping going on, but looks like that may happen today.
And there's his father, the two-time winner of the Indy 500, Arie Luyendyk Sr. watching. He's the one that has been nervous walking up, pacing up and down pit road. He helped put the money together from the sponsors, fatwallet.com, and Hitachi and others that have come on board, Curb Records and company, Kerry Agajanian, Greg Beck, the longtime owner, to try to put a second-generation driver in the field. Arie Luyendyk Jr., 23 years of age, has been running in the Menards Infiniti Pro Series. That's how he took the step to get to IndyCar. It was exactly what Tony George wanted the Menards Infiniti Pro Series to do, be the stepping stone for young drivers to be able to make it someday to IndyCar racing, and maybe someday to this hallowed place, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
You know, it's totally amazing sitting there watching Arie Luyendyk Sr. You know, he's been a pole sitter. He's been a winner here. And, you know, coming here as a driver, coming here prepared to be part of a race team or to actually get out there and do battle yourself is one thing. But I just can't imagine being a father watching your son go out there. You know, on that same note, today, May 22nd, is my son's 12th birthday, Winston. And, you know, I'm very sad that I'm away, but very excited for his birthday. And I can only imagine if my son was going to crawl in a car, the emotions that I'd be going through. And I don't know how he's holding it back that way.
The last couple of nights, Arie Luyendyk Sr. and Jr. have been inseparable at night, walking around town together in the mall. His dad knows how difficult this task would be. He knows what's at stake. He cannot afford a mistake at 220 miles per hour. Now, Arie Sr. watching his son. How many years has he dreamed of his son following in his footsteps? How many years has Arie Jr. waiting for a chance? He has never been in an IndyCar Series event. He has never attempted to qualify for an IndyCar Series race. All that will change here in one more turn, because 23-year-old second-generation driver Arie Luyendyk Jr. has just become the 33rd car to qualify for the 89th running of the Indianapolis 500. And how about that? Some applause from Dad. Listen to the crowd as they applaud the second-generation driver. Moments later, he climbed out of the car and spoke with our Vince Welch. Vince?
As it stands now, the field is full. 33 in the field for the 89th running of the Indianapolis 500. Arie Luyendyk Jr., 23-year-old rookie, completing the field, at least at this point, as the 33rd qualifier. It's been a very difficult week for you. Got in late with rookie orientation, had an incident yesterday banging the wall. Today you get in with 4 laps, each one faster than the one before. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel a big relief off my shoulders. Just really relieved that everyone pulled through for me. We made some adjustments in the pits, in the garage, and it really made a difference. It made it night and day. Able to run flat around here is the best feeling. So I ran my 4 laps flat. I tried to shift into 6, but just too much downforce on the car to pull it. So we'll know that for carb day, and we'll make some adjustments. But right now, I'm just really happy I'm in. It's been the last few days have been really stressful. And so many people are behind me, and I just want to do well. And this is a relief to get in the field.
What crossed your mind as you crossed the yard of bricks and took the checkered flag?
Just it was like a sigh, But it was definitely fun. My first couple times through one flat was exciting, and I knew I had to get it done. And the car was beautiful. It was planted, and I couldn't thank Greg Beck enough for giving me the opportunity.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to thank you to Curb Records and everyone else that's helping me here. It's a really good day for me.
Let's turn now from Arie Jr. to Arie Sr., 2-time winner here at the 500. Now, I was watching you very closely as Jr. was out on the track, and you had very little facial expression, but right at the end, you let a little smile creep through, a little fatherly pride, maybe?
Oh, for sure. He got thrown in at the deep end there, and it's hard enough to come here as an experienced driver, let alone as a rookie. This is his first time ever in an IndyCar. He hasn't raced at Phoenix and other places like that. So, but yeah, I'm proud of the job he did, because with that pressure, he came through. So that was good.
What's that tell you about him, maybe as a driver, and also what's inside?
Well, he has the drive. I think that every time a driver goes out in qualifying and pulls a little bit more out of the hat, that shows that he has the capability of doing what he should do. And it just wasn't meant to be that he had a lot of track time, so we couldn't really run the car with low downforce. So he's still running around with a lot of wing in the car, and but that didn't matter today. He just had to get it in the show at a certain speed. 215 was good enough for the league, and so now he'll look at 32 cars ahead of him next week.
Arie Luyendyk Jr. in the field so far for the Indianapolis 500. We'll wait and see if he can stick, or maybe a little bumping yet to be done before the end of the day.
And we told you about following in his famous father's footsteps. Let's turn back the clock to 1990. Doug Shearson's car qualified on the outside of row 1 with Arie Luyendyk Sr. aboard. Luyendyk, no one gave him a chance to win the race, much less the pole here. He comes in the late laps. Luyendyk makes the pass and takes the win, becoming a first-time Indy 500 winner, and gets to celebrate with a cool sip of milk. 7 years later, Luyendyk would win the pole, driving for dear friend Fred Treadway. And in the late stages, Luyendyk makes a daring pass down the back straightaway, holds on to the corner, and Arie Luyendyk becomes a 2-time Indy 500 winner. Hello, everyone. Glad to have you with us at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm with former pole sitter and Indy 500 veteran. I'm Jerry Punch, and boy, this is so exciting. I love bump day coverage because you never know what's going to happen. Just like moments ago, the emotion of a son following in his father's footsteps.
Yeah, it's amazing. Arie Luyendyk has such a great history here, again, winning poles and winning races, and then to see his son come for his first ever IndyCar ride, not his first ever Indy 500, but his first ever IndyCar race. This is a big task. He didn't get a lot of time to practice in the car, and he's done a very, very good job.
That's sort of like sending your son out for his first at-bat in the World Series, or having him shoot a jump shot, in the final rounds of the NBA playoffs. This is this big. This racetrack, all the history here, 88 previous Indy 500s, and you try to put him in the field. And folks, get this, he did not get in that race car until late Friday afternoon. And we had minimal track time on Saturday, so it is a phenomenal effort for our young man following in his dad's footsteps.
And certainly knowing both Luyendyk Sr. and Jr., and knowing Arie's Jr.'s career, Formula 2000 and the Infinity Pro Series cars, he's done a very, very good job. But what I've really noticed and I like is he's really matured. You can see it in his facial expressions. You can see it, talking to engineers, and you know, I think a lot of people thought he was going to really struggle here, but just looking at his eyes and listening to his words, I think he's doing a very, very good job, and this is a great learning curve. He knows this may not be an opportunity to win the race, but there's no place to get experience besides on the racetrack, and if he stays in the race, doesn't get bumped out, he's going to get a lot of experience come next Sunday.
Well, he needs to get on the track now and get practicing for race setup. They've been practicing for qualifying setup and get the car comfortable for race day, because the next time these guys will go on the racetrack, it'll be Carb Day coming up on Friday, and our coverage will be here live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, ESPN 2. Carburation Day, 1 hour final practice, the Futaba Freedom 100 from the Menards Infinity Pro Series, and the Checkers Rally Pit Stop Competition, $80,000 up for grabs from the folks at Checkers and Rally for the fastest guys on pit road. When we come back, Felipe Giaffone is just climbing an AJ Foyt car to try to bump his way in the field. We'll follow that story from Indianapolis in just a moment. ESPN2's presentation of Indy 500 time trials is being brought to you by Carfax. By Dodge, you can take life as it comes, or you can grab life by the horns. Dodge. And by Cialis. Cialis is here. Ask your doctor if a free sample of Cialis is right for you. And we welcome you back to Speedway, Indiana. Actually, Indianapolis Motor Speedway here in Speedway, just outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. We are underway with day 4 of Indy time trials. Now, bump day qualifying. The grid is now full with Arie Luyendyk Jr. having qualified. He's a 33rd car to qualify. Slowest car in the field will be bumped by the next fastest car. And remember, though, each car gets 3 attempts today. So Arie Jr. could go back out if indeed he is bumped. Now, who could possibly bump him? I think Jamie Little has an owner who would like to try.
I'll tell you what, there's never a dull moment in the Foyt camp on bump day. Last year, of course, it was Tony Stewart. This year, Felipe Giaffone. AJ, when did you make the call, the decision to put Felipe in this car?
Well, it all happened probably about an hour ago, but, you know, I'm still confused myself, so I don't know what's really going on.
I know you have your hands full with 2 cars out there. What are you doing with 3 in the field, perhaps?
I need to go to the nut doctor.
You said it, we didn't. Hey, you're building some good drama here, but, you know, Larry, your son was in the car for the last week and a half. Did you have any idea you were going to put somebody in this car?
Well, you know, Larry shook it down. He liked it pretty good, and you know, we got Dolores. We just got the 1 G-force, and so I don't know. We just have to wait and see what happens.
So this is the real deal. You are going to go out and attempt to qualify.
Well, I don't know. We got to get up to speed first.
All right. Well, so far, so good. His speed is looking faster than Arie Luyendyk qualified, Jerry. We're going to watch this and watch it unfold.
All right, thank you very much, Jamie. There's the 48 car that Felipe Giaffone has climbed in. As you mentioned, Larry Foyt in that car earlier in the week. He was on the track for 63 laps and with a top speed at 216.200. Felipe just went out a moment ago just to warm it up and was at 215.2, so he is already very close. Actually, those laps a moment ago by Giaffone would have put him in the field and bumped Arie Luyendyk Jr. As we head down to Vince Welch. Vince?
Thank you very much, Dr. Jerry Punch. It has been a very whirlwind type of day for Felipe Giaffone. He and his wife Elise were at Babies R Us on the north side of Indianapolis about 1:30 this afternoon when they got a call that you better come to the track. We think we might have an opportunity for you to get into the race car. So Felipe hustled back down here to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, shuffled into the Indy Racing League office, signed the appropriate paperwork, and immediately went to the A.J. Foyt garage. He did not have a seat. Last year, Felipe ran for the Dreyer and Reinbold team in a Dallara, so they could not transfer his specially made seat into this car because this is a Panos. So Felipe got into the seat of Larry Foyt. He said it fit pretty good. They actually have taken some mechanics rags and taped them to the headrest to keep his head a little more steady so it doesn't buffet around when the G's start to take effect. But otherwise, he said the fit has been very, very comfortable. When he first got here today, I said, which car are you getting in? And he said, to be honest with you, Vince, I'm not really sure yet. How would you like that? You get to the track, you're going to maybe qualify for the Indy 500, and you don't even know what car you're going to get into. Felipe Giaffone, as you said, Dr. Jerry Punch, has already turned some solid laps just in a very limited amount of practice laps. He is a guy that can get it up to speed in a hurry, and he has had success here at Indianapolis. In 4 Indy 500s, he had a best finish of 3rd in 2002. We'll see if Felipe Giaffone can complete this whirlwind day with a successful qualifying run here before the 6 o'clock hour in Indianapolis.
All right, Vince, thank you very much. Great report there. Now, I'm wondering here, how do you do that? How do you accomplish that? I mean, you go from Babies R Us. One moment you're looking at playpens. The next moment you're climbing in a Panos. You're going from teething rings to Toyotas, all in the span of about 45 minutes. And now he fires it up and may go out to try to race here and get ready to qualify. How do you do that?
Well, I tell you, he's looking like the man of steel right now. He hasn't been in this car previously. He hasn't driven a car earlier this year. Of course, when he did finish 3rd here back in 2002, he was driving a Panos. He does have a very good feel for these cars, and I think the Panos probably has a wider window. The comfort in getting up to speed quickly is probably bigger in the Panos. And I tell you, looking at him again, looking at his eyes, he looks very, very calm. He's very, very collected. He looks very focused. You know, he went out and did a warm-up lap. By 5 laps, he was 2:11. By 10 laps, he was 2:15. I tell you what, I was very excited to see Arie Luyendyk Jr. in the field. But I have a feeling here that Giaffone can bump him out.
How about if you're a little Nicholas Giaffone and you're suddenly sitting there with Dad getting ready to look at a new playpen, and suddenly they jump in the car and you're about to watch Dad qualify for the Indy 500. You talk about fathers following their sons and sons following their fathers. It's been that kind of day here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. One son followed his father into the qualifying field. Another young son followed his father back to the track to watch him qualify. Just a moment, we'll hear from Michael Andretti, who wore a wireless mic on pole day. His words when we come back. And back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it is day 4, bump day they call it here, Indy 500 time trials. Who will bump their way into the field? You're looking at a very good candidate right now. A.J. Foyt owns the car, and a very likable Brazilian driver, Felipe Giaffone, who is a former Rookie of the Year here in IRL IndyCar Series action. Bombardier Rookie of the Year back in 2001. Well over 216. That would be quick enough to put him in the field easily over Luyendyk Jr. When we are hearing, though, that Luyendyk Jr. is climbing back aboard his car, and certainly would be a factor to go back out. So we'll have some drama for you here in the final hour and a half or so of bump day at the world's greatest race course. Now, what about qualifying last Sunday? Take a look at our front row. Tony Kanaan, reigning series champion, on the pole, 227.566 for Andretti-Green Racing. Penske has a car in the middle of row 1. His 2-time champion, Sam Hornish Jr. And how about Delphi Fernandez? Great effort by Scott Sharp, the former pole sitter here, and series champion, 227.126 miles per hour. Well, on pole day last weekend, Michael Andretti's powerhouse Andretti-Green Racing team was hoping to sweep the front row, a feat that hasn't been done here since Penske did it way back in 1988. And even though Tony Kanaan got on the pole, it turned out to be somewhat of a frustrating day for Michael and Andretti-Green. We wired Michael for sound on the entire pole day. Now sit back and enjoy. It is arguably the most hallowed ground in all of motorsports, the storied Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where today, after Mother Nature forced a one-day delay due to rain, we finally began the pursuit of the pole for the 89th running of the Indianapolis 500.
You know what to do? Flat, right?
Oh, yeah, I'll try.
What are you going to do, like the first lap, slow, and then...
Yeah, slow, and then pick it up. Try not to kill the tires.
Yep.
Third car out to make an attempt. Well, reigning series champion taking the green flag, 30-year-old Tony Kanaan from Salvador Bahia, Brazil. He currently lives in Miami, Florida.
That was a 227.8 warm-up. I hope he didn't use it.
White flag. The laps are 227.771 and 227.459.
Is it holding or not?
A little bit slow.
Yeah.
One more to go. Good job.
Michael and Mario watch as Tony Kanaan, TK, comes down to become the quickest car thus far in qualifying at 227.566 miles per hour.
Used it up on that first lap.
I know. I left too early. But you know what?
It cost you like 2/10.
I know. On the last lap.
On the average, it probably cost you 2/10. Not bad. Not bad.
I think they can get
Yeah, I
better.
think we might have to do it again.
Brian Herta was the next AGR car to qualify, but his speed was a disappointing 223.9. Teammate Dario Franchitti, second quick in the morning warm-up with a 229.4, was waved off his run after only 2 laps.
22, what the freak? There's something wrong. Pull him in. Pull him in. You would have just kept your first lap the whole way through. That's what you need.
Then it was Dan Weldon's turn. The IndyCar Series points leader, Dan qualified second quick here last year, and many thought he would again be a serious contender for the pole.
Lap number 1 for Dan Weldon coming down, and the clocks click away. 225.249. That will not get it. He will not be a factor to bump off Tony Kanaan with that kind of first lap.
There's a mystery out there that we need to solve. How can these cars be so different? We're not understanding something.
Finally, with only 15 minutes and no attempts remaining in the day, Dario made it into the field, but his speed of 226.873 was good enough only for the second row. With the clock winding down, Michael was worried that someone would withdraw their time and attempt to bump Kanaan off the pole. And it happened. With only 10 minutes to go, Roger Penske's team was going to let Helio Castroneves try to again steal the pole away from Tony, just as he did in 2003.
What did he just run before, Helio?
No, not that quick.
Can't believe they're doing that.
I don't either.
Unless they know something we don't.
Penske was really smiling.
Shoot.
Well, a moment ago, you saw Tiffany Hammer hand Tim Cindric, the president of Penske, a pen. He had to sign the paper to withdraw Helio Castroneves' qualifying time. Castroneves, who was inside of row 2, now doesn't have a qualifying time. It's as if he never ran earlier today. That's the drama of the new format.
I guess maybe not now is a good time to ask if you like the format.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Magic.
I think this is probably the biggest moment. Can Castroneves hold his breath? Can he suck it up? Have they found something? Have they played their cards that close to their chest that they're going to be able to pull out a pole here?
Can he put the car on the pole? Can he put that man on the pole for the 13th time at the Indy 500?
He's going to have to pick it up, 227.330. I think if you watched all the qualifying times today, most of the drivers have done their fastest lap on the first lap.
We'll see what happens with Castroneves. Second time by no, he goes the other way, 226.939. Tony Kanaan says, whoo, I can climb out of this rocket right now.
Oh, look at him rubbing on that car.
He's rubbing that big 7-Eleven decal. My buddy Helio Castroneves didn't quite get it done. But I tell you what, I wouldn't have bet against Castroneves. And if I was Roger Penske and Helio Castroneves said, give me another shot, I would have said, absolutely, buddy, you've got it.
I've almost broke my fingers. I had them crossed so bad.
I guess step 1's out of the way.
Yeah, that's never had a pole here. Big deal for me, so it's awesome.
Oh, the agonizing emotions of pole day. You saw Michael Andretti and Kim Green and Kevin Savory, the 3 owners who own Andretti-Green Racing. And Greg, you've lived that as a driver and owner and a combination driver-owner in the last year or so. You know what that feels like.
Yeah, I guess you can say it's agonizing or exciting, you know, and I think nobody knew for sure what was going to happen that day. The Andretti-Green team is very, very fast, but they, you know, you saw Michael listening to that interview. Oh no, what have those guys found? They really thought that they could go out there and do it, and they didn't have the package to quite do it, but the Andretti-Green team, they were really holding their breath, hoping they didn't get bumped off pole.
You got 2 cars that are identical, but one's fast and one's not. He says, how can those cars be so different? Talking about Kanaan and Weldon, he says, because they're very, very close in setup.
Well, you know what? You can, by the math, you can make those cars look the same and they feel the same, but you could see it certainly in Weldon's eyes that day. He'd been fast all week long. He'd, you know, the bounce in his step, and the time chart said he was a very real threat for pole. And come that morning, they just lost the car. They couldn't find the setup, and magically it was gone. And even though the car might have could do it, he had lost that confidence, and he just couldn't really make it happen. So, you know, that was a big surprise. Another big surprise of pole day was that Vitor Meira didn't go back out, or Scheckter didn't go back out, and there were lots of surprises. But hey, 3 champions on the front row, that's pretty exciting.
Exactly. History repeating itself here, and it does again this year because we have 3 champions on the front row. And just like this year, you've got 1996 co-champion Scott Sharp, two-time series champion Sam Hornish, and reigning series champion Tony Kanaan. That's the front row. And back in 1991, the last time it happened with Mears, Foyt, and Mario Andretti. Back on the racetrack, Arie Luyendyk Jr., who qualified, and just a moment ago, he is on the bubble, of course, at 215.039 miles per hour. And a moment ago, he had a moment, you might call it. Watch him coming to the corner. Whoa, big time bobble and wiggle. He hangs on to it here. So look once again. And the wobble, the wiggle, but the rookie held on. Held his breath probably, but he held on. We'll find out what's going on in the Luyendyk camp. They're back out in possible hopes of defending their starting spot. We'll see who bumps whom when we come back. And we welcome you back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Indy 500 time trial coverage. Bump days. We are waiting to see who will be the next to bump their way into the starting field. He took a look at some of the cars that have qualified. That is Marty Robb, who will start 29th in the middle of row 10 as he has qualified for his second Indy 500, the former Menards Infinity Pro Series and Indy Lights driver, solidly in the field. Here's a car that's being fueled up there on pit road. That is Felipe Giaffone. He is the story right now we are following because he has not yet qualified, although he has been quick enough on the racetrack in practice today to get that car in the field. What's going on in the A.J. Foyt camp with Giaffone? Let's head down there and Vince Welch.
The target speed for this team is the 4-lap average of Arie Luyendyk Jr., 215.039. Now, Felipe Giaffone in his last run had a lap of 215.8. That was his 21st lap. As you take a look at A.J. Foyt kind of pounding the pavement with some nervous pacing here, Felipe said the car is very comfortable. He's got a little push in turn 3, but he said the car has a very comfortable balance. So they did make an adjustment. They lowered the rear wing to reduce the drag and try to get him a little more front straightaway speed. And they also made a shock adjustment. So they're just trying to free the car up a little bit to try to pick up that extra little oomph to get them over the hump so they feel confident about a 4-lap average that would indeed remove Arie Luyendyk Jr. from the field of 33. We'll keep you posted as they continue to tweak the car and try to find a little something extra.
All right, we told you that 1996 co-champion Scott Sharp qualified on the front row here in 3rd position. It's the second time he started on the front row here for the Indy 500. He was the pole sitter back in 2001, but to get the pole, he had to get by one tough Texan on that pole day afternoon. You remember this, Greg Ray?
I remember it very clearly. You know, Scott was one of the first cars out of the box, and he really hadn't posted the speed all month long, and I think it was a big surprise, and they nailed it right on the head. We were going to follow that. We had lots of things that we had in our box of tricks for qualifying, but the car just wasn't right. And I tell you, we qualified second that year, but I was just very, very happy we didn't qualify 22nd because that car was a handful to drive.
Well, Scott Sharp ended up being on the pole that day, but one of the phenomenal efforts. There's a look at the number on the pole, and the number right behind him. That was the efforts of Greg Ray. There's a look at the 2001 pole sitter, Scott Sharp. Still looking for that very first win in Indy 500 history. But if you look at Greg Ray's history here, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, you started second, first, and second. I think you understood how to get around here pretty quickly.
Yeah, you know, qualifying is just a separate event. You have the race, which is the world's biggest race, the Indianapolis 500, but qualifying is a speed event. You have to have the car, you have to have the motor, you have to have the setup, but you have to have nerves of steel, and you have to be able to hold your breath for 160 seconds. That's 40 seconds a lap, 16 corners. And I've always used that because they said, well, how long can you hold your breath? I go, well, I know I can do it for at least 160 seconds. And, you know, it is very, very tough here, but it's a very, very exciting. And this is more of a statement on how far you can hang the car out on the edge. And it's always very exciting to watch and certainly exciting to be behind the wheel.
I know you can't say this, but we really love having you here with us on ESPN and ESPN2, but I look forward to seeing you back in the race car very soon. I know you're looking to get that team organized and back together, so with the kind of efforts you've had here over the years in Indianapolis, you deserve to be back here down there in the qualified field for the Indy 500. You know, innovations here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway over the year have gone far beyond that of just engines and chassis. It involves safety for the driver, the cars, and the fans. With more on what Delphi has done, here's our Vince Welch.
The Indianapolis 500 isn't only about speed, it's also about safety. And one of the most recent safety innovations is called the Delphi Earpiece Sensor System. Tim Kronenberg is here from Delphi, one of the engineers who's worked on this system. Kind of explain the concept behind it, Tim.
Well, Vance, what I have here in my hands, my right hand is the earpieces that the drivers wear, and my left hand is the accelerometer that actually goes into those earpieces, and it measures the G-forces that a driver might experience in the unfortunate event of an accident. It can measure up to 250 Gs in all directions, front and back, left and right, north and up and down. And this is stored away into our accident data recorder, which then can be extracted later using a PC for analysis.
Let's turn now to Dr. Henry Bach, the Director of Medical Services at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy Racing League and the Indianapolis 500. Doc, how does this data generated by the accelerometer help you in the medical field?
In order to really prevent accidents and prevent injuries, you have to know what causes them and to what severity they are. And without being able to measure the heads, we really have no idea on when they occur in the sequence of a crash or how severe they were. By giving numbers to that, we can then take that evidence, go to the laboratory, go to the sled and test it, and then using different foams, better helmets, different parts of the car, attenuate those crashes so we have less injury.
The Delphi Earpiece Sensor System was recently named recipient of the 39th annual Louis Schwitzer Award for engineering excellence as regard to safety in auto racing. A $5,000 check was presented to the Delphi engineers, and they promptly donated it to the Sam Schmidt Paralysis Foundation. Doc?
Very nicely done, Vince. And Dr. Henry Bach and all his staff understand that you can, when Buddy Rice hit, like, for example, on May the 11th, the impact for the car was 78 Gs, I'm being told, but the impact on those sensors that Delphi developed was about 120 Gs. That's why he took a significant impact with the head and neck. Well, one of the most famous Gs to come to this racetrack was named Guthrie. We're talking about Janet Guthrie. She came to the open for women in racing. We'll visit with the Pioneer when we come back. 28 years ago, May 22nd, 1977, history was made here at Indianapolis when Janet Guthrie became the first woman to ever qualify for the Indianapolis 500 with a 4-lap average of 188.403 miles per hour in a Lightning powered by an Offenhauser. And now the legendary pioneer for women in racing here at Indy is standing by with our Jamie Little.
She's truly a pioneer and an inspiration to many, many women. All this talk about Danica, but this was the woman that started it back in the 70s when women were not really welcome in Gasoline Alley or anywhere around the track. What was it like for you in the 70s racing here?
Well, at the beginning, of course, there was a lot of skepticism because most of the oval track drivers had not had the experience of running against a woman. But once they found out that I was competitive and clean, they got used to the idea, and that made a lot of difference. It was rewarding to see things change.
Now, we've been talking about A.J. Foyt. I know you have ties to him. Back in 1976, you actually got to ride in his car. What is A.J.? You've known him for so long. I don't think he's changed.
A.J. was always unpredictable, but he was always very, very nice to me. Yeah, driving his car, taking out the car of the one and only A.J. Foyt onto Indianapolis Motor Speedway, talk about pressure. And I did, of course, run it fast enough to qualify, but he decided not to let me make an attempt with it, so I had to wait a year before I put a car in the field here.
And that was an exciting year, of course. Now let's talk about Danica. Times have changed now. She's 23 years old. I know you've been quoted as saying some things about the way she's been marketed. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a different generation, and if she's comfortable with the kind of thing she's been doing, that's fine. The important thing is what she does on the racetrack. And she's the first woman to get here with the equipment, the top-notch equipment, and the backing of a winning team. So she has 3/4 of everything in place, and I'm absolutely certain Danica is capable of supplying the remaining quarter.
Will you be here at the race to watch her?
Oh, yes. I'll be here looking with great interest in cheering her on.
And I know you're also here because you have your own book out. Tell us about that.
Well, it's taken me a long time to write this book. I didn't have a ghostwriter. It's every word is mine. But it recounts the adventures in racing. And what I really wanted to do was convey to a wider audience what the passion and complexity of the sport are all about. I also touch on the history of women in racing in motorsports going back to 1898, which I think women's history is a really important thing.
I do, and we thank you so much for your time. Janet Guthrie, the first woman to put a car in the field here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Dr. Punch.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And it was a thrill for us yesterday when Janet Guthrie came by and gave us a copy of her book, A Life at Full Throttle. And what I was able to read last night, it's fascinating because she says she wrote it herself. And not only did she race here and it has the best finishing spot ever for a woman at 9th, but she also ran, I think, 34 stock car events. Finished 6th at Bristol. She finished 12th in the Daytona 500. So Daytona 500, Indy 500, and it's just a phenomenal. Back when she did it in the late 70s, it was very, very tough for anyone to give her any kind of credit.
I think if you look at Lynn St. James and Sarah Fisher and now Danica Patrick, it really is amazing because she was in different times. The cars were different. The acceptance was different. And she was definitely charting new ground. She was a pioneer. And it was really awesome to talk to her, and that's going to be a great book.
Well, she finished 9th here at Indianapolis. How about someone who could possibly win the race? That's what everyone's talking about this year. She's been the darling of the month of May. Danica Patrick's story when we come back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Indy 500 time trials continue. We set the field for the 89th running of the Indianapolis 500. This is Bump Day. Along with Greg Ray, Vince Welch, and Jamie Little, I'm Jerry Punch. Glad to have you with us here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. In the final hour of Bump Day, we'll see what kind of drama will unfold here at the world's greatest race course. Take a look at our qualifying summary thus far. We do have 33 cars qualified. Tony Kanaan, reigning series champion, is our pole sitter. Danica Patrick starts 4th inside of row 2. And Kenny Brack yesterday, fastest car, 4-lap average in the month of May. He starts 23rd by virtue of the format. He could only start as high as 23rd yesterday, but he's 227.598, and he will come roaring from the back of the pack. Let's check in on pit road with Vince Welch.
Doc, Felipe Giaffone has just gone back out with a fresh set of tires. They had made a rear wing adjustment, but when he went out for a run after that wing adjustment was made, Felipe was getting a false readout on his dashboard that there was a throttle issue. So they brought him back in, worked through that, have come to the conclusion that there was not a stuck throttle. It was just providing a false readout on the dashboard. But so they went ahead, put a little more fuel in it, put a new set of tires on, and they feel like this is going to give them a fair gauge on how those chassis adjustments have worked. They also adjusted the ride height. So if the impression I get from AJ is that if these adjustments to the car provide a little extra speed and provide a comfortable race car, then Felipe at that point and AJ at that point would feel comfortable putting it in the qualifying line.
All right, as you watch Felipe Giaffone, thank you very much, Vince. As you watch Felipe, Greg Ray, you're making so many changes at one time: ride height, wing angle, and you're worried about maybe some throttle adjustments there. You're seeing some meters going off in the dash. How can you handle all that mentally as a driver?
Well, you know, the big thing, I think, you probably saw a flash or some sort of alarm going off on the dash. And as a driver, you're out there pushing it to the limit, trying to get up to speed. He's just trying to get comfortable. And anytime you see a warning or alarm go off on the dash, you don't know what it is. You don't know if a motor's about to have an issue. You don't know if a tire's going down. You don't know what it is, and it kind of takes you out of your rhythm. So the thing that I noticed, you know, listening to the Foyt camp talk this morning, and I know Giaffone was listening in, was they had qualified the car at a certain setting, and today when they were doing the long runs, they went to -2 to -1 and from -1 to 0. So I'm pretty sure that he went out with that rear wing tilted back at a -2 degrees. In this last change, it looks like it's about -3. So that's freeing the car up a little bit, and he looks very, very smooth, again, very confident. And you know, like I said, I hate to see Arie Luyendyk sitting in this situation, but with the way the rules are, looks like Giaffone may have a chance to bump him out. Arie Luyendyk Jr. sitting there ready to bump himself back in. So it's going to be a two-car duel here coming down to the final minutes.
As you see on the right side of your screen, Arie Luyendyk Jr. currently sits on the bubble. His qualifying 4-lap average at 215.039 miles per hour. Meanwhile, Felipe Giaffone trying to qualify for his 5th Indianapolis 500. Felipe, the 2001 IRL Bombardier Rookie of the Year, driving for A.J. Foyt. Felipe's been running in stock cars in Brazil, driving down there, I think, where Elio Castro Neves owns a stock car team down in Brazil, and was up here walking around looking for a ride. If you just joined our coverage, Vince Welch reported earlier that Felipe and his wife Elise were at Babies R Us shopping with little 7.5-month-old Nicholas, and he gets the call to put down the teething rings because there's a Toyota waiting here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it might just pay off because that last time by, 2:16.064, and that indeed would be enough if he could run 4 consecutive laps with that to bump Arie Luyendyk Jr.
Absolutely, and the time he went out before, he also ran a 2:16.16. So again, I think he's very comfortable in the car. He only came in and kind of waved off because he saw that alarm, and he looks like he has the speed, and I think they may trim the car one more time. He said the car was very, very stable, felt very, very good. There's a little bit of push. And again, I think they can probably trim the car again, and they probably will push it the next step. They know that Arie Luyendyk Jr. is sitting there ready to bump himself back in, and they want to try to push the boundaries. They want to kind of push the speed to where maybe he can achieve that and secure themselves into the car.
Even quicker that time by, 2:16.283 for Felipe Giaffone. He came from the shopping mall to the racetrack. It may end up with a starting spot in the Indy 500. But we're going to tell you about one of the most heartwarming comebacks in IndyCar history. Yes, we lost last year's champion because he can't race here, but who took his spot? More on that story when we come back.
Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the last hour of Bump Day. I'm Jamie Little, joined now by Eddie Cheever, car owner of the Red Bull Cheever Racing Team, number 51 and 83. And you are comfortably in the field, Eddie, sitting on the wall. We've seen you smile now. How relieved are you sitting here on Bump Day knowing you guys are in the field?
I can think of nothing worse in sports than not being qualified at the 500 with only 1 hour to go. And I have done it before, and it's no fun. But we're very glad to have 2 cars in the field. We struggled a bit this month trying to find some speed, but we're happy. We worked hard. Both Patrick and Alex are comfortable with their race cars, and this is the most grueling 500 miles any race car driver or team will ever have to do. But the first step is getting in it, and I'm glad I'm a spectator and not a participant.
I see you watching this drama unfold with the A.J. Foyt camp. We were talking about A.J. What is he all about? What is he thinking right now?
I worked for A.J. for 1 year, and I would have to say that it was definitely the most colorful year I ever had. The man's an icon. He won Indy 4 times, qualified, I think, 36 times for it. So he lives for this place. He enjoys it. He sees an opportunity to put another car in the field, and he's going to take that risk. I have a car sitting over there. I'm not even considering taking the risk, but he walks to a different tempo than anybody else does. And this is his holy ground.
Well, we have to talk about a new sponsor in your cars. You guys were out running earlier, and I noticed IZOD on the side.
We're styling. We just signed an agreement with IZOD. It's one of the probably most important companies of its type in the States, where we're going to have all our apparel and clothing done by them, and the whole look of the team will be working with IZOD. But the cool thing is that it's a company that's been around for a very long time, but they're like the Indianapolis Speedway, that they have a lot of history, but they're also evolving and very youthful and colorful. And I know that both Alex and Patrick already in line for some clothes. So as usual, the owner will get left way behind, but we are very proud of that relationship, and we're looking forward to developing it.
Well, congratulations on this sponsor. We'll be looking for Alex Barron and Patrick Carpentier in the field. Vince, let's send it down to you for an update.
Felipe Giaffone has just gone back out in the A.J. Foyt machine. A.J. made a front wing adjustment. They took a little bit of downforce out of the car. Felipe says the car is very neutral, and he's still having to lift going through turn 1, and then they're getting on the rev limiter on the back straight, so it's not quite completely comfortable yet, but it's getting very close. A.J. leaned over the wall a few moments ago and called over the Toyota rep, of course, the engine manufacturer for A.J. Foyt's team. Remember, Arie Luyendyk Jr. has a Chevrolet engine in his car. A.J. asked the Toyota rep, what do you think? Should we go out and give it a run? The Toyota rep said, it's Indy, isn't it? It's bump day, isn't it? Let's go kick their butt. They're getting close to making a qualifying attempt here for Felipe Giaffone. Stay tuned.
Well, it's Indy, it's bump day, and it's A.J. What else would you expect him to say? We are pleased now to be joined by a very special guest, the President and Chief Operating Officer of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The name is very familiar to you, Joie Chitwood III. And Joey, thanks for coming over.
Jerry, it's great to be here.
You know, we all know what a Chitwood does and what Chitwoods have done for 55 years, those exciting thrill shows, but many people may not realize that your grandfather, it all started for him as a race driver.
Absolutely. His career really started as a race car driver. Raced here at Indianapolis, finished 5th 3 times. Credited as being the first man to wear a seatbelt at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. During World War II, though, racing was outlawed. So in the meantime, he ended up buying a thrill show from Lucky Teeter. And the latter part of the 40s, he created it. Actually ran for 55 years. Of course, that great video of me getting out of the car, taking a wave, I appreciate that. But yeah, I can drive on 2 wheels and wreck cars on purpose and do all sorts of those things. And really, it was a great career for the family. 55 years, 3 generations, my grandfather, father, and me.
That was a great move there. Now, do you do that with the pace car on the way home, just going down the I-65 here, just go up on 2 wheels to pass people when you run out of room?
I found that it's better for those things to happen on the racetrack, and I end up just being a safe route there on the streets.
Now, for people who don't understand, the thrill show served had a long-running 55-year career, and I guess is now closed. But so many of us grew up watching the Joie Chitwood thrill show.
One of the things that I really appreciate in terms of the legacy of the stunt show is the I remember when story. You know, there's so many people I meet out there who say, I remember when I saw the show at a fairgrounds, a racetrack when I grew up. So for me, it's a lasting impression that I'm so proud that the family created.
Well, congratulations to you, though, by the way. Every time we come by and visit you, you've been promoted again, and now it says President and Chief Operating Officer. Now, what are your duties? What all are you overseeing here at the racetrack?
Oh, I'd say it's safe to say a little of everything, you know, in terms of marketing, the business side, now in charge of operations, facility-wise. So you name it, it's really important. There's a lot of things that go into putting on the greatest spectacle in racing.
Well, you're a great executive, but if Tony George says he's having a bad day, says, how about going out and jumping ramp to ramp? You can liven things up if you want to.
I will tell you, when I left here to go to Chicago years back, I did have to teach him how to do reverse spins.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So Tony knows how to do a reverse spin?
He absolutely does.
Oh, that's got to be fun here. Hey, Joy, we appreciate you coming by and sharing with us the Chitwood legacy, your grandfather qualifying here and having 3 fifth-place finishes here in post-World War II, and the great legacy of the Chitwood Thrill Show, and now doing a great job, by the way, here at the Speedway.
Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate it.
Joie Chitwood III joining us here as a special guest as you're watching some laps now being turned by Felipe Giaffone. He could be the next car to bump his way into the qualifying field as bump day continues here. Day 4 of Indy Time Trials. Coming up following our coverage here, NHRA Powerade Series Pontiac Performance Nationals Elimination tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Marty Reed, Mike Dunn and company will have all the action from the NHRA Powerade Series coming up later on tonight. Back in just a moment.